plan your next moves in silence. If this man is violent verbally, you don't know what he would do physically if you were to leave him. You don't do that. Hi everybody, and welcome back to our channel. Today we are going to be looking at yet another intercultural conundrum from Reddit. This one titled, "Is my cross-cultural marriage doomed? Desperately need some advice." My significant other, 45-year-old male, and I, 36-year-old female, come from different cultural and financial backgrounds. We met in the United States and have what seems like a perfect marriage with 2 young kids, 2 and 5 years old. We've been together for 9 years, married for 8. Like most couples, our conflicts become more intense after having kids. Before the kids, our relationship was pretty blissful and with frequent travels between Europe and Asia. For about a year now, whenever I confront him about an issue, he will get defensive, shut down, or raise his voice, no matter where we are.
That's gonna be a yikes for me, dog.
Sometimes he apologizes for losing his temper, but in the heat of the moment, he is impossible to communicate with. I have tried to keep quiet until the storm passes. He has raised his voice multiple times in the past year, including one time at a subway station in my city, and it made quite a scene. When he did this, I completely lost it, and it became an ugly argument for everyone to see.
You want to get nuts? Come on, let's get nuts.
The biggest conflict happened last week. We are currently visiting my in-laws in Hungary for a month, which is a bit stressful for me as I don't speak the language and fully rely on him to translate everything. It's interpret, but I'm not going to mince words right now. On that day, he and I already had some issues prior to driving to the town with the kids and my mother-in-law. My mother-in-law insisted that I went with them to help with the kids. We took the kids to a playground in the town, and that's where everything blew up. I spoke first, and I told him that I was contemplating to separate. By the way, separation was mentioned a few times prior to this in the past year or so. When it was his turn to speak, he began to raise his voice again, and I couldn't stand being spoken to like that in public, probably due to my Asian cultural background and upbringing. You do not air dirty laundry in public. I told him that this conversation would not continue unless he calmed down, but then he became explosive and insisted that I had to listen to his side of the story. He began to comment on my rude behavior toward my mother-in-law before we left the town, and that he was embarrassed by my behavior. I admitted that I wasn't in the best mood due to our argument earlier, but there was also a delay in translation by him, and he should know with my Asian upbringing, I would never disrespect an elder, no matter what. I told him this was a serious accusation and he needed to take it back, but he refused. "You're doing this on a playground? Take it back! No!
Take it back! No!"
Then I completely lost my composure and had a meltdown in the middle of a playground. This checks out. Y'all are acting like children in a children's environment in front of children. You should both be ashamed of yourselves. A woman lent me her Wi-Fi spot so I could call my family in Asia. I've never felt so humiliated in my life. We haven't spoken much since then. Whenever we did, the conversation would get heated. By the way, when I approached my mother-in-law later to clarify/apologize for any possible rude behavior, she responded by saying there was none of that in her opinion. I can't help but feel ambushed and insulted. I am at a loss here and seriously considering separation/divorce. He is a great father and the kids love him, but as a husband, he is a nightmare sometimes. I'm wondering if we're at the end of this marriage and at the same time mourning the possible loss of a complete 2-parent home for the kids. A complete 2-parent home for the kids where you all are screaming at each other in front of your children on a regular basis, where you're ignoring each other, where you're gaslighting each other. That is not a safe home for your children. And you should not be contemplating keeping things together just for the sake of the kids, when what you could be doing is emotionally damaging them. You gave your own answer to yourself where you said he is a great father and the kids love him, but as a husband, he is a nightmare. If he is not a good, supportive, kind, gentle, peaceful energy and presence in your life, and he has no respect for you as his partner, but he loves his children, then you need to allow him to be a good father while also giving yourself the space to be safe and to be mentally well and emotionally well. This is not a recipe for a successful marriage, what y'all are doing right now. I'm curious about your comments regarding marriage counseling earlier on when you said that it seemed to work for a while. To me, that feels like he was putting on a show for the therapist. People can fake it till they make it, or try and fake it for a certain period of time, thinking that you'll get off their case, and then they'll go right back to what it was that they were doing previously. And that seems to be what's going on. The last piece about him gaslighting you was the part that really concerned me. You're at the mercy of his knowledge at this point. There's a movie years ago, I think Sally Field's in it. It's called Not Without My Daughter, where she meets her husband, who is of Muslim background. I could be butchering this. They have a daughter in the United States and they travel to his country, and this man turns into an absolute demon. I don't want to say that it scarred me, but there's a part of me that just feels like you should not be telling this man about your contemplations or plans to separate or divorce from him. You're in a country, man, where you have no kind of leverage at all. He could disappear with the kids. You don't know anything about the laws there, and you're basically making yourself a sitting duck. You plan your next moves in silence. If this man is violent verbally, you don't know what he would do physically if you were to leave him, and you don't put yourself in that kind of danger. You don't do that. There's only about 5 comments on this post. About half of them are not helpful. Is it possible he could be starting with early onset Alzheimer's or dementia? Shut up. I don't think the cultural things factor into this as much as you do. I think this is less about your backgrounds and more about unaddressed issues in your marriage. I do indeed agree. Getting your affairs in order and then divorcing this man is probably the best course of action. But you should do it after you have consulted with a lawyer and you have prepared all of the documentation to do so, instead of just threatening, well, I'm going to leave and blah, 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 blah. Because that's when people get diabolical. This is a disaster for the children. It's a disaster for her. It's so sad that this kind of stuff happened, but it's preventable if you take your time and don't rush into major commitments, man. What are your thoughts on this story? Because I'm emotionally exhausted at this point. As we always say on our channel, with God, all things are possible, and I will see y'all next time. Take care.